Morning, all. We're going to start off today with a news of the day video, and we're close. We're close to getting some kind of an announcement. Gary Bettman, in discussing things, seems to have some kind of idea for how this is all going to work. There's still some work to be done, but the expectation is that they want to get this announced by Friday, have some kind of a vote on both the Board of Governors side and the NHLPA. I would think likely on the weekend, maybe on Friday. And then, just have the wheels in motion for next season. Because the sooner you have an idea of what the plan is, the sooner you can start to carry that out. Bettman's confirmed what we've known. You will only play teams in your division. This is for travel reasons. This is also for outbreak reasons. So when we had the Rudy Gobert thing happen in March, remember, and then everything shut down, basically, this means that, let's say something happens with the Blues. And I only mention the Blues because we had the Blues incident before the return, officially was the return. And, of course, Tampa Bay had one, too. But if you have an outbreak on a team and they've played, say, 2 games and you're looking at who they might have impacted, you're only looking within the division. You're not expanding it to other divisions. So this is, and again, there are regional restrictions that are going to be in place as well that are going to change things. But it makes sense to just play in the divisions. And then the rumor has been that they'll be back-to-backs. So if you go to Vancouver, you'd play 2 games in Vancouver. Go to Montreal, New York, etc. Right? So, and of course, the border being closed means you'll just have teams in Canada playing against each other, which is a whole other headache. Because right now in BC, adult sports, like team sports, are not allowed. And that includes floor hockey, road hockey. If I tried to put together a road hockey meetup right now, odds are the police would come in and say, well, okay, we're going to break this up. So that's the issue that BC's got going on right now. And I know it's not just BC. So there's talk as well about teams maybe having to relocate temporarily. And he pointed out the Toronto Raptors moving to Tampa and how something like that could happen with NHL teams where temporarily they have to play somewhere else. San Jose is a good example of that as well right now. The LA Kings may be an example of that right now. So yeah, there's some logistics to be worked out here. There's some headaches for the NHL, but those are the things that they're likely working on as well. And the longer you can delay an announcement, the more you're hoping to have some clarity on that. And every city's going to have different rules in terms of how many fans, if any, you can have in attendance. On the Canadian side, I'm going to go ahead and say it won't be permitted, but with certain American locations it will be permitted, and it's going to be interesting to see how that works in a day of revenue sharing being as it is and everything. And there may be restrictions as well on which hotels and restaurants teams can use. So if you're in town, you go to a Calgary restaurant, you may have to go to the same restaurant as everybody else did when they went to Calgary. In that they just want to make sure that they have it's a controlled environment without it being a bubble. So teams are going to have certain places they're allowed to go, and they're not allowed to go outside of that area. We've seen in both baseball and football this year what happens if you don't obey those guidelines. So I would think that NHL players have been watching that, and they should be, thinking, all right, we don't want to jeopardize the season. And then, of course, as we get into the spring, things are going to change as vaccinations will be more readily available. And there'll be some slow return. And it's going to be slow. It's going to take a while. But there'll be some slow of return of fans and whatnot. Other interesting thing, too, is the NFL's already come out and said we're not going to try to buy ourselves any vaccinations. Players are going to wait their turn. So that's going to, in turn, hit other leagues as well, who may have been thinking about trying to jump the queue. And so, again, that's going to affect the NHL as they're starting their season. The NFL's kind of got it made that the numbers are getting worse, but their season's winding down. Now they're going to be going into, they're not doing the bubble thing either for their playoffs. But then you've only got a 16-game season. And, again, large teams, though, and there have been numerous outbreaks in the NFL. And I'm not going to try to claim that that's the template to follow, but with a shorter season and so many days off in between games, you have some movement that you can do with the schedule that maybe you can't do with other leagues. So the NHL has a lot yet to to announce and let us know what's going on. But I think bubbles are probably going to be the start of it. And Bettman has said that as well, that there could be bubbles to start the season. There's a lot up in the air, a lot of unknowns. Oscar Lindblom, if you're a Flyers fan, good news. A year after his diagnosis of cancer, he is now cancer-free. He is free of it, and so here's to hoping Lindblom remains free of that and that he continues his career this year and that he looks just as good this upcoming season as he did last year before the diagnosis. He was playing very, very well for Philadelphia. Good news, too. NHL Network is going to be carrying every game of the World Junior Championships. If you haven't watched the World Juniors, it's very good hockey. It is very good hockey. And the only reason that I'm not usually covering the World Juniors as much as I'd like is because the NHL season's on as well. And if I was watching all the World Junior games, I'd be watching hockey legit, 12 hours a day, and I wouldn't have any time to do anything else. So this year, because the World Juniors is being held and it's not at a time where the NHL is playing, I can cover it, and I will, and videos are on the way regarding the World Juniors. I know the rosters have been announced and all that, which is great, but I'm waiting till we're closer to the start date, and then we'll get her going. Alex Stalock is out indefinitely for the Minnesota Wild, so in seeking depth, you're going to have 3 goaltenders this year. They re-sign, because he's been in the organization before, Andrew Hammond. So it's a tough break because Stalock had a very good year last year. By his standards, it was a good year. He did outplay Devin Dubnyk, made it easier to trade off Dubnyk. But now you have a situation where it's Talbot and likely Kokkonen. And Kokkonen looked decent in a call-up too, so this may be a chance for Minnesota to see what he's made of. And Hammond would step in as the number 3 in that situation. He's played for the Minnesota organization before, so it's a pretty easy move for Hammond. Interestingly enough, out of Buffalo, Brandon Montour, defenseman, seeing the team's gaggle of right-shooting defensemen, he's been taking most of his training on the left side in the offseason. So Montour likely lines up on the left for Buffalo. Montour, of course, a player that, depending on how expansion goes for Buffalo, he may end up being a player that's exposed to Seattle. He's a good defenseman, though, and Buffalo's got some choices, I think, to make in between now and when Seattle makes their picks. Speaking of rumors and players who have been on the trade block and all this wonderful stuff, Max Pacioretty has basically come out and said what I think any of us who watched what he went through in Montreal already knows. The trade rumors in Vegas are not something that's going to worry him. So if you're a Vegas fan and you're thinking, well, I hope Max isn't overly upset about these rumors, he's not. Max Pacioretty, as captain of the Montreal Canadiens, was involved in trade rumors for, I want to say, 2 years before he was finally moved by Montreal. It felt like every other week we were hearing new rumors and rumors about how upset Montreal was with him. And as soon as he got the captaincy, it just felt like that became even more of a problem, that there were a lot of rumors about him potentially being moved. So Pacioretty is fully capable of handling those rumors, and I think Pacioretty, he may end up being a guy who gets traded by Vegas. I don't know, but the rumors are out there. We'll see. I know the owner has said that he's not being moved, which raises other questions about how much the owner's involved with day-to-day operations, because that can be an issue for a team if an owner's involved too much. But Pacioretty, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he's not concerned about it. Calgary, following right in the footsteps of Florida, they now have a goaltending department as well. And if you're a Flames fan, this is good news, because honestly, when you look at what happened with John Gillies and then Parsons as well, Parsons hasn't become the goaltender he was envisioned when he was drafted. And so having a goaltending department that, will look at developing goaltenders and look at making things better, that's a good idea. And I would imagine this will be all the way through the organization. And I've talked about this before, how goaltenders are really unpredictable, and maybe part of that is development. Maybe part of it is just development. And so for Calgary, they're going to start focusing on that. And it's right after they got Markstrom. So now they have Markstrom, they have Riddick, and now they're setting up a goaltending department similar to what we've seen in Florida. And eventually, I think every team will have something like this, where goaltending is given the amount of attention that it probably deserves. And it's probably going to require more than other positions, because goalies can be strange people. There's definitely a video to be done at some point on some of the weirdest things about goaltenders, because there's some weird stuff. And people always bring up the Patrick Waugh talk to his goalposts. Oh, I wish that's the weirdest thing that they did. That's nothing. That's very, very small in terms of the weirdness that can be goaltenders. Because you have to be just a little bit different to say, I want those 90-mile-per-hour pucks to be shot at me. That's the job I want. So you have to be kind of a little bit different. It's kind of like airborne in the military. Kind of the same idea. You want to jump out of an airplane into a war zone, you're probably a little different. Speaking of a little different, a Tier 2 team in Sweden, I would imagine is Björklöven, but who doesn't see Björklöven right there, right? That's a town that really likes the artist Björk. So Björklöven is being investigated after an 8-4 loss for match fixing. And this is one of those things where gambling lines. They were up 3-1, third period, and then they lost 8-4. They allowed 6 straight goals. It said 6 straight power play goals. So there's some concern that maybe they threw the game. And players interviewed have said that they don't see any way that more than half of the players on the team, which is what you would need, would agree to throw the game for gambling reasons. But this is something that, again, once you've allowed gambling into the sport, there's going to be these investigations and accusations. We already have this in hockey. The accusation that teams got bribed, refs got bribed, coaches get bribed. And it's there's never been any actual evidence of it, but it's there. And once we get the gambling into it in North America, the way that it is in other parts of the world, we're going to see this accusation. There's going to be nights where the NHL allows gambling, and then we're going to hear, well, this team was up 3-1, and then all the odds switched, and while this team was up 4-0 in the third, and then they lost 5-4 in overtime. Isn't that convenient? Because the betting line was this, and it became this. So look for this to become not necessarily a regular thing amongst actual investigations. Like, the police are involved in this apparently, but don't be surprised if it becomes more of a visible issue on this side of the pond when gambling is more and more prevalent. Because again, it's money to be made, right? And leagues are going to be looking to make more money in the wake of the huge revenue drop they've had in 2020 that will carry over into 2021. Gambling revenues would definitely help. So look for that to just be expanded in the NHL circles in the upcoming years. And probably there might be some Björklöven hockey players who could find themselves. I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm well aware. I know. Because again, I see that and I think it's Björklöven, but I think Björklöven sounds better. So I apologize. I apologize. But hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And here's to hoping that by the end of tomorrow, we have an absolute 100% foolproof plan that somehow the NHL will find a way to make as harrowing as possible to carry out. But we should have that this week is the word. And there's still some debates about like taxi squads, and when you send a guy to the taxi squad, do they still count under the cap? Does that count as an AHL demotion? They're assuming the AHL is going to play, which I don't know. I don't know if the AHL actually does play. I'm wondering that myself, if the AHL is actually going to make it and they're going to get it done, but we'll see. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.